with our American colleagues, which we had a very good discussion. So this first two opening online webinar serves as a very good start for a two-day conference of the 6th China and Globalization Forum, which it's a CCG think tank's annual forum. For this forum, actually, we have very good turnout. I mean, probably it's the first offline forum that happened in China. And we have almost 300 people attending, and then we have 30, 40 ambassadors, about 20 international organizations, over a dozen, 2,000 international chambers, and businessmen, academic, think tank community. So it's really a great event. I think we are holding this event at a very critical crossroad, the juncture of the pandemic, which is still affecting worldwide, and also we're having this U.S. election is probably coming to a close, and have a winner, appear to have. So I know that there's many things going on, and I really appreciate all the time that you had with us. So as a pillar of the post-World War order and underpins the globalization, as all of you know very well, I mean, the European spirit of multilateralism has been consistently displayed, but also dampened by the Brexit and maybe also the widespread populist anti-globalization movement, and particularly we see the unilateralism in the last few years. So European interest by being affected by the dynamic also of the China-US relations that has been experiencing a rivalry as the US called a strategic rivalry in the last number of years. So many parts of the world actually is now suffering from this pandemic, but also the uncertainty of the multilateralism. European has been the great safeguard and also great promoter of the multilateralism, is really how we can work with China, and China can work with Europe, and also probably in the next 4 years with the new president of the United States to forge a new course of cooperation that ranging from climate change to pandemic fighting to WHO support and WTO reform. So it's very fascinating that we are having all of you here with this really great timing, very critical time. I would like to present our panelists actually for today for our opening panel of the 6th Annual China and Globalization Forum. I just called this alphabetic order. We have Professor Carrie Brown. He's a professor and director of Lao China Institute at King's College London. He's an old friend of China, has been to China many times. I remember I see you last year at the Strathmore College. Also, you visited our think tank as well. So thank you very much. We also have Honorable He Yafei. He is actually a CCG co-chair, but he's a former Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also a former Vice Minister of China Overseas Diaspora Office of the State Council. He also served as a permanent ambassador, permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, as ambassador based in Geneva for the United Nations. And but also we now have very important. We have Ambassador Wolfgang Ischinger. I mean, is very well known in China. Ambassador Ischinger is the chairman of the Munich Security Conference, and also former German ambassador to the United States. But particularly Ambassador Ischinger is well known for his leadership of the Munich Security Conference, and then it's become probably the most important policy platform in the world. And we've been actually attending the Munich Security Conference for the last several years, and we have witnessed how influential, how huge impact it has on the world policy making in the world. So really great to have Ambassador Ischinger online. And last but not least, we have also famous Pascalani. He's the Paris Peace Forum chairman. And I know that Paris Peace Forum is opening today. I really appreciate you are having such a global conference, and you're squeezed time to join us because I know that you've been in China many times. You were the former director general of WTO, which is very very important to China and WTO. So it's really great that now you're heading this multilateral governance forum at the Paris Peace Forum. So thank you for your coming. So I think that this is the setting that we're having, and we can have a lot of discussion, and particularly relates to China, Europe, talk about all the aspect. We are having also live streaming as well. We have quite a few social media is broadcasting, and this morning we have 250,000 viewers online for our previous section. So I think your advice, your suggestion, and your recommendation as to how China, EU can work, European can work together, how we can face in this pandemic, how we can safeguard multilateralism, and of course security and future development are all the relevant topics. So perhaps I could, since Ambassador Ishinger has been on top of many things, I'm also pleased to join you for the Munich Security Conference on the World Health webinar just a few days ago, and you've been really on top of the direction. Perhaps you could give some opening, your statement. We will have a format about each person have a 6-7 minutes of opening statement, and we have a second round. We have some Q&A. So we'll try to finish within an hour and a half. So perhaps Ambassador Ishinger, you can go first.
Okay, can you hear me now? I hope you can hear me now.
Yes. Yes.
Good morning. It's early morning in Western Europe. Thank you for including me in this eminent group of panelists. It's an honor and a privilege for me. And thank you for referring to the role of the Munich Security Conference. I was extremely pleased when some years ago, the foreign minister of China took me aside and told me that the Chinese leadership regards the Munich Security Conference as relevant and important, and that I should count on senior participation from the Chinese leadership in the future. And I want to just take this opportunity to say thank you, because that's exactly what has happened. We've not only had the foreign minister and vice foreign ministers like Mr. He, but we've also had very senior leaders from the State Council and actually from the Politburo. So thank you very much. We appreciate this because, of course, one cannot discuss anymore global issues and challenges without the active involvement and participation of China. So this is very good, and we will continue to work on Munich as an inclusive platform. I hope very much that next year, depending on, it depends on the pandemic to what extent we will be able to organize a physical conference. I think Pascal with the Paris Peace Forum has been facing the exact same problem. Can you do a physical conference? Does it have to be entirely virtual? We will see how that plays out in February. But one thing is clear. I will make every possible effort to make sure that the future Biden administration will be present. As all of you know, and I'm sure many of those who watch this program know, Joe Biden has come to Munich many times as a senator. He participated twice as vice president on behalf of the Obama administration, beginning in 2009. And he has actually participated after his departure from the White House, the last time in 2019. So I have some positive vibration, so to speak. I think it is there might be a chance for us to get, for the first time, a sitting U.S. president to speak and to address the world from the platform of the Munich conference. Having said that, most European leaders, including, of course, Emmanuel Macron, prime ministers of the United Kingdom, prime minister of Canada, also, etc., have participated in Munich, as well as the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. The one wish I have, and I will be very frank right here this morning, is that at some point in the future, hopefully not in the too distant future, I hope that we can welcome to Munich the president of China, who would then be the only one of the really big powers who has not yet used this platform. Now, having said that, let me just offer, by way of provoking, hopefully, the discussion, let me just throw out a very few points on the current situation. First of all, I see a lot of euphoria in Europe, in the commentariat, in the media, by European political leaders about the election of Joe Biden to the presidency of the United States. Well, I am personally also, pleased, because I think this is a good development, but I warn against too much euphoria. Clearly, the tone and the manner in which European leaders, and I'm sure also Chinese leaders, will be able to discuss controversial issues with a Biden administration will be significantly less unpleasant than was the case with the Trump administration on a number of important issues. So there will be a change in tone, there will be a different kind of cooperative diplomacy, but the problems, the underlying issues, will not automatically go away. We will continue across the Atlantic to have serious issues about burden sharing in defense. We will have issues on trade, and Pascal, of course, knows a lot more about that than I would. We will have hopefully a return by the United States to the fold, so to speak, of the Paris Climate Accord. I'm not so sure how easy it would be for a future Biden administration to rejoin the so-called JCPOA, in other words, the Iran nuclear accord, given the current situation. And the most important thing, and I want to just conclude on that, I think, is China. Joe Biden has said in the campaign, and I, in preparing myself for this round of discussion this morning, I looked it up again. He has said not only once, but several times during his campaign that he needs to, and he will be, and he needs to be tough on China. So we should not expect a future American President Joe Biden to soft pedal on China. The US Congress is not in a friendly mood with regard to China. And that means that for us in Europe, for us in the European Union, figuring out a consultative arrangement with the United States to agree or to disagree or to work together in our relationship with China is going to be a serious challenge. It's not going to be easy, I believe. So there's a lot of homework ahead, especially for us in the European Union, because I think we will be able to play the role which we should be playing in coming years as partners of the United States and in our relationship with China, only if we can speak with one voice. And we're not really doing that yet. We're doing it, of course, on trade, but we're not doing it on foreign and security policy, which means that the European Union is often, when it should be present, when it should be able to defend its security interests regionally or globally, it is quite often absent or not, at least not sufficiently effective. So we need to do a lot of homework, and there's a lot of work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Issenger. The fascinating discussion. I think you have really set a tune for a panel discussion as well. I'm also know that how attractive a Munich Security Conference is, and you have actually there's a parade of global leaders have gone through your your conference. So it's a good idea that President-elect Biden and President Xi maybe at possible next time attending Munich Security Conference, and certainly China will be looking more and more international engagement, and that is really a great ideas I think that you have mentioned. So we have actually maybe we should have a China representative speak now. Mr. He is a seasoned diplomat and has been positioned in Europe for many years, and also has been positioned in the U.S. So he has been a researcher, a global researcher on the globalization. You have been publishing books and articles for quite some time now. So Minister He, what's your take on the current China-EU relation, China-US, and what's the next stage of globalization? Probably you could share something with us, Minister He. You have to unmute. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. Now, thank you very much for to be in this with this distinguished group. Thank you, Mr. Wang, for inviting me. The American election, we have been all watching the election with fascination. It has left us food for thought, as I see it, on at least on three things. One, the deep social division within America would be very difficult to bridge in the short term. So political radicalization, meaning identity politics, populism, ideology, and so-called America First, will continue to exist, to continue to play a role, even if Biden will be in the White House soon. Secondly, of course, the Trump's signature unpredictability in its foreign policy and the unilateral withdrawal from international organizations, agreements, for instance, JCPOA, etc., will be halted for the time being. Policies will be reviewed. And US relationship with European Union will have enough, I would say, space for rethinking, revisit, to be improved. Thirdly, I agree with Ambassador Wolfgang that we should not have too much euphoria about US-China relationship in the short term. We will wait and see. I will talk about later. But anyway, according to American political guidelines, whenever a new government is in office, it will have a period of time to review its policies, its foreign policies. From my perspective, its policy towards China, its relationship with Europe, and its attitude, policy towards global challenges, such as climate change, Iranian nuclear issue, will have an opportunity to be not only reviewed, but also have some room for improvement, maybe rejoining or readjustment. But we have to understand that what Trump has done in the past 4 years has a lot of social base in America. It's driven by populism, by anti-globalization, by narrow nationalism. It's all there, still there. He has gained how many votes? Over 60 million votes, at least. So you can see the social base is still there, very much there. It will continue to affect American foreign policy. Now about Europe, I believe Biden administration will have a more proactive view or attitude towards European project or European Union. Its relationship with its allies in Europe will improve, that I'm sure. But as I mentioned, with what had happened in America itself, domestically, many European countries, in particular Germany and others, are now a bit suspectful, I would say, suspicious of the American model on liberal democracy. Will it be continue to be effective, etc.? And also, they're worried the American type of populism, it has already spread to Europe and to other advanced nations, including some developing nations, what it will have, or what impact it will have on social cohesion of countries or in the world, which we need badly. European project, personally I believe, is a pioneer project for humankind in global governance and regional governance, to which China has given its support. Even if we know European Union, the Euro, etc., has undergone a process of twists and turns, with success stories and sometimes not so successful stories, but it's still going on. It is still going on. We admire that spirit of continue to carry on the European project in the face of huge changes in globalization. And you can rest assured China will continue to support the European project and willing to cooperate fully with the European Union on a wide range of issues, including promoting economic growth, cultural exchanges, and to deal with global challenges like nuclear proliferation, climate change, etc. Even if China and Europe do not share the same political ideology, do not have the same political system. And we have to admit, that's open. And from time to time, some European countries do have different views with China on certain issues. But it does not, I have to emphasize, whatever differences we have with European countries or European Union did not hinder the long-term cooperation between China and Europe. This is one thing. Secondly, as Ms. Wong has mentioned, the European multilateralism, or the multilateralism as proposed by European and accepted by many countries. Now, of course, China has also been advocating multilateralism, particularly in this critical moment of history. China and the European Union need to work together and to win over the new administration in America to continue to rely on multilateral approach in addressing global issues. It doesn't matter whatever global challenge we face, we do have numerous global challenges. In this, I have to emphasize, we, meaning countries of the world, international community, are really in a tremendously difficult position or period of time, at least for a few things. One is we have seen huge advances in technology. Technology is both a good thing and could be disruptive, very disruptive. It has created global supply chain, increased wealth for many countries, but also because of globalization, we should not blame probably globalization, but because of the free movement of capital, etc., etc., and we do have cases of a certain segment of populations in advanced nations, their income has been stagnating for a few decades because lower ends and middle part of the global supply chain, industries have been moving out of these countries into developing countries as capital is seeking more profits. So technology, again, is advancing very fast. We have numerous new technologies. How will it change the whole picture, political and economic landscape? How will it change the relations among major nations? This is one thing. Secondly, the traditional security threats, the military confrontation, geopolitical rivalry has been on the rise. We see higher tension between US and China, US and Russia in a lot of places, including South China Sea, etc. But in addition to that, we all have witnessed how much damage COVID-19 has done to all of us. Europe is experiencing the second wave of COVID-19, and we don't know when it will end until we have lots of really reliable vaccines. Infectious diseases, climate change, nuclear proliferation, cyber warfare or cyberspace conflicts, these are all new challenges, what we call non-traditional security threats. And now these things are combined to present us with a ugly picture. When we look into the future, as Guterres, UN Secretary General, has suggested lately, the future looks, very bad. It is unpredictable. It is uncertain. It is not stable, full of instability. So this is the world we are going to face for China, for Europe, for the United States. And US, of course, has been abdicating its responsibility in the provision of global commons in the last few years. You call it isolationist, unilateralism, etc., populism, whatever name you want to put on it. But the truth is, one pillar, or one of the pillars in the provision of global commons has collapsed. We do not know yet, Mr. Biden can lead US back onto the right track. As I suggest from the very beginning, the social cohesion is in question. The social division is very deep in America. So I would say for US, for China, for European unions, we all have lots of domestic difficulties, challenges to overcome. European Union has its own problems. China has it too. US, as I mentioned, a lot. So whether we can overcome our own domestic challenge difficulties and then be ready to cooperate on that basis to deal with global challenges. So you can see you have two layers of challenges, domestic and global, which are highly interrelated, by the way, because without a favorable cooperative international environment, it will be extremely difficult for a single country or a group of countries like EU to address its domestic challenges. But without a success in overcoming domestic difficulties again, it will present lots of hindrance or difficulties to engage in international cooperation, because some people blame all these domestic issues on globalization, on international cooperation. So these are the things that we need to watch. So multilateralism, I would say, is very much needed at this critical moment. Now, on US-China relationship, again, I agree with Wolfgang that I don't think Mr. Biden will be soft pedaling on China-US relationship, because the whole strategy has been changed. The strategic perspective of China by the United States is more or less bipartisan, and it has certain social basis, social foundations. So it will be difficult or even impossible to return to ground zero, for instance, to return to the period prior to Trump or prior to Obama. I don't think so. So what we are going to see is the arrival of a new administration will give us a pause in the escalating spiral of rivalry or competition between the two countries. A pause, an opportunity to have a new look, at least to review what has been going on, to see probably how dangerous it is, and then can sit and talk. You know, it's very unfortunate there has been no talk in whatever form between two countries for some time now. It's very, very unusual and very dangerous. So probably with Biden in the White Office, we have a chance to start talk. It might not be strategic dialogue. I don't think, we will by one step leap into strategic dialogue, but at least we can start on issues or areas where China and US share common interest. For instance, finance, financial problems or financial market, capital market. China has been continues to open capital market, and financial risks are accumulating across the globe with unlimited stimulus packages or unlimited QEs. So finance is one project or one topic we can start discussion. Cyberspace as a very serious and urgent non-traditional security threat. How can we manage cybersecurity, for instance? Thirdly, a revisit to the establishment and operationability of crisis management mechanism between the two countries. In case anything happens on South China Sea, etc., we do have a reliable channel of communication and a mechanism to manage the conflict. So at least give us some hope that dialogue may restart. On COVID-19, of course, this is urgent matter, public health. I do hope on international, on global governance, like the reform of WTO. I think Pascal will be talking about it later on. Reform of WTO. How can reinstate WHO, in its central position, central role to mobilize global sources to combat COVID-19 or future pandemics. In talking about global governance, I believe that a nexus, so to speak, a core of China-US coordinating, the two try to, as they were suggesting, China-US should rule the world, which I do not believe will ever happen. But what we could anticipate with China-European in closer cooperation in global governance, we can nudge United States to in the same direction. As long as China, European Union, US to a certain extent join global governance or rejoining global governance, and with the support of countries like Brazil, India, and a group of developing countries, we do have hope to repair the global governance architecture was in disarray, total disarray now. There is almost no global governance architecture or system to talk about now. Unfortunately, whether it's ad hoc arrangements or permanent organizations, all are in danger. Some are in immediate danger than others. I think we need to revive the Iranian nuclear deal, JCPOA. We need to revive Paris Agreement with US rejoining, etc. So this is really, I agree with Wang, a critical moment in history. For China, European Union, United States, all of us need to revisit this world, have rethinking about who we are, what role we can play, and what kind of world we expect to have in the future. We should start now. Inaction is suicidal, I would say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Minister He. I think for your very comprehensive and all detailed discussion. I think you have shared some of the views that multilateralism is in danger, and how we can really get together, China, EU, and US probably. So there's quite a lot of things to digest. That's really add a lot to our discussion. Now I would like to really, I know Pascal is very busy today, and appreciate your coming. And I want to invite Pascal Lamy to speak, because Pascal Lamy is the former Director General of the WTO, and he's very well known in the international for his WTO role a number of years. But he was also he was also served as the Chief of Staff for the President of the European Commission, and also Sherpa at the G7. So has many experience, and I know that now you are the chairman of the Paris Peace Forum, which is opening today. So maybe you could also introduce Paris Peace Forum for us, which is another global platform that you've been establishing, but also, what about your take on the future trade and future China, EU, and the rest of the world? Perhaps now, Pascal, please.
Thank you, Henry. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you. Very good.
Good?
Okay.
Good. So I'll say a few words about all this. Like Wolfgang and Yafei, I will start by looking at this triangle, which in my view will frame geoeconomics and geopolitics for the time to come between China, US, and Europe, and which I see as, unfortunately, in many ways, as a triangle of vulnerabilities. Why so? Because the US feel vulnerable vis-à-vis China, China feels vulnerable vis-à-vis the US, and EU feels vulnerable both vis-à-vis US and China. And this creates a situation which makes more difficult the sort of international cooperation system which we had lived with for the last 30 or 40 years, because this vulnerability has increased in recent times and is now the main feature. Two big events in 2020 will have impacted this triangle. The first one is COVID, and I agree with what has already been said, which is that COVID has made this triangle more fragmented, more difficult. Bilateral relationships within this triangle have been severely damaged by the COVID crisis. That's the bad news. Another element in 2020 will have happened, which is on the good news side, which is, of course, the election of Joe Biden, which might, to some extent, and I agree with the sort of caveat which Wolfgang has mentioned. Joe Biden does not have a magic wand, but there is good reasons to believe that US back to the table of international cooperation is good news. So a force for bad, a force for good. How will these two forces balance and play out? I think it's not clear, but there is room for some improvement of the way this fundamental triangle between US, EU, and China will work. Let me, like my good friend Yafei here, look at what this could mean. Where can a new, more cooperative arrangement within this triangle work? And this is exactly what we will be discussing during the Paris Peace Forum, which, as Henry said, starts today and will last tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. It's become a major international event, sort of 10,000 interactive participants this time, plus a few 100,000 followers on the social networks. We are nearly at the range of Chinese numbers, the sort of big numbers which we all now target with these platforms. And by the way, most of you around this digital table will be participants, and the others are, of course, welcome. We will focus precisely on what could be done within this triangle of vulnerabilities in a time where more cooperation may be the order of the day. Let me mention three areas. One which is short-term and which is vaccine. This is an urgent short-term matter. We know that China, US, EU are covered, that whatever formula, whatever invention happens, the three of us will cover our citizens. The real problem is not there. The real problem is, what do we do with a part of mankind which is not covered by a vaccine, which is roughly more than half of the world population. This is a major issue of international cooperation for the times to come. It's not only a question of finding the roughly $20 billion we need to buy and cover the population. It's also a matter of governance, a matter of solving the famous problem of the last mile. So that's one short term where China, EU, US can do a lot to alleviate a dire sanitary situation. The second issue I will mention, unsurprisingly, is of course trade. The WTO is based on a triangle of US, EU, China agreeing or disagreeing, not that the rest of the membership does not matter, but an agreement between US, China, and Europe is a necessary condition for any step forward in the World Trade Organization. We know that we have a very solid agenda of WTO reform ahead of us, starting with issues that have divided US, EU, and China, like leveling the competitive playing field in international markets or in Chinese domestic markets. This famous issue of state aid disciplines, it was there before. The way Donald Trump handled it made things worse, not better. And I totally disagree with those who said, at least Trump has made sure that we all recognize we have a problem with China. Of course, we have a problem with China in state aids and state-owned enterprises, but the way he handled it, in my view, made things worse in sort of reinforcing the view among the Chinese leadership that China had better become more independent from globalization rather than more. I think this is a major strategic gaffe by Biden, and I hope that within the Chinese leadership, this view that the future of China in something which is more autarkic will not prevail. And in order to do that, WTO can play a role. Final issue where I believe this triangle can rework is, of course, environment. This is the major #1 international long-term urgency. We know that the Biden administration view is very different from the one of Trump, who basically was a denier of China, of climate change or environmental challenges. I agree with Yafei that Biden will not have a free hand on environment, climate change, energy transition, because of the way the US political system works, especially if the Senate remains with a Republican majority. Yet, I think there is room for a better articulation of our domestic policies, the enormous energy transition which we have. We now have China wanting to be carbon neutral in 2060. And this is, in my view, a major element in this landscape. We have EU same goal in 2050. We need US to engage on this road. And then we need to draw the consequences of that in the way we handle the international economy, including trade, because there will be consequences of a higher carbon price on international exchange. It is not just one of these many movements of relative prices. It will have major consequences, and we have to discuss and agree, if possible, on codes of conduct, notably on things like border carbon adjustments. So a full plate. The bad news is that COVID makes this planet tougher, more competitive, more divided, more fragmented. The good news is that there is some room for convergence and cooperation, and we should build on that. This is my contribution to this morning discussion. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Pascal, for your really good points. That you've been in the multilateral world for so many years. You've been really championing multilateralism, and your idea, I think now it's really a golden opportunity now with this crossroad, with this pandemic that unprecedented in this century and last century. So it's great opportunity now present for EU, China, and US to work together. This triangle relation you talk about fighting pandemic, strengthening the World Health System, strengthening the trade, and strengthening the environment, which is, I think, Paris climate change deal is really demonstrate that the world can work together with some kind of a multilateral spirit. So it's kind of now with this US election we can recall this new probably a spirit that you've been spearheading for so many years. So thank you for you, and also wishing you a Paris Peace Forum a great success. And now I would like to also invite my friend Harry. I mean, you based in UK, but you experienced firsthand how Brexit and how China, EU, China, UK, and many issues. And you've been writing a lot of articles and books, and so you have a very deep research on China. And so probably you can share some of your views to our viewers. We have already over 300,000 viewers online right now, watching all of us. So perhaps Carrie, your turn, please.
Thank you from Dawn in the UK. Very good to see you all. It's a very distinguished panel. And I guess, well, I'll say a sort of few things about COVID and then the geopolitical situation regarding China. COVID has brought clarity. It's answered some questions about what nations want, how they deal with each other. One question it has helped answer is, what kind of power is China? I think we have been in Europe and America split between those who believe that China is coming to impose its values and system. It's a proselytizer. And those who think of China maybe as a self-interested power, reluctant to really get involved in the affairs of others, not at all wanting to expose or to expound its values, because it understands that they are very unique to it, with its political system, its cultural and intellectual background, its history. It's an exceptionalist. So I think COVID has shown us, in fact, that China is much more likely the latter. I do not subscribe to the discourse in America and Europe which sees China as infiltrating our systems. I think the problem is that China's method of communication antagonizes the fears in Europe and America, and acts often as a proxy for problems that we often have with ourselves. As the retiring head of the British Security Service, the MI5 service, Alex Younger, said in an interview with the Financial Times, I think last week, misinformation, interference in electorates, these kinds of things were, and you know, the kind of big divisions we see in our society, like the American election, like the Brexit in UK, these were not things that others did to us. We did them to ourselves. And I think while China has been put as the perfect, you know, kind of sort of the perfect criminal in this, and has not often been able to communicate why it is not actually that, you know, it's not guilty. We need to now be honest and say that much of the responsibility for the divisions and challenges that we face lies with ourselves. And I think COVID has really illuminated that. In the beginning of the year, we took a position, I think, in the UK, for instance, and in America, that this was a typical Asian problem, and it would be sort of illustrating the poor governance in, you know, kind of China and elsewhere, that we would not really be affected by it. We now see an America, which I think yesterday had an appalling number of new infections, the UK fighting with the second wave, across Europe, new lockdowns in Paris and elsewhere. We cannot now say that our governance systems are so superior. I'm not saying that the problems that they face were, you know, so kind of easy and you know, anyone would have problems. We do have to acknowledge, though, that to be a democracy does not mean necessarily that you are going to be able to deal with the kind of problems that the pandemic confronts you with. And we do have to think about the ways in which the Chinese governance system has dealt with the problem, and may, in fact, have things that can teach others. For many people, however, in Europe and America, this is a very hard thing for them to countenance. So that's the first thing, this giving of clarity about the kind of power that China is. The second thing is really about the structure of international relations, which other speakers have referred to. The common, you know, sort of language now is about a new decoupling. But I would say that, in fact, coupling never happened anyway. And what we are giving up is the dream of, you know, this kind of unified future where a world would operate with America and China and everyone happily sitting in a uniform structure. We did our best, and the WTO, as Pascal Lamy, you know, kind of knows very well, was a huge instrument to deliver that, but it's obviously had very, very big limits. And now I think we have to look at a world with a complex architecture of areas of profound mutual cooperation, public health and climate change, for instance, where everyone sees their self-interests as working together, but also a world in which there are areas in which we are profoundly at odds. And we cannot ignore those areas. We just have to find pragmatic ways of working around them. The issue really with the American language under Trump is this idea of a righteous battle in which, in the end, America would vanquish, you know, the sort of Chinese communist regime. I think this is a fairy story, and I think it is good that maybe a new president will stop that fairy story. whatever we think about America and China's different values and all of the issues as Europeans or wherever we are, we cannot deny the reality of both. The reality of China being a fifth of global GDP, a fifth of humanity. This fact is immense and important. We cannot wish it away. Richard Nixon in 1968, before he even went to China, acknowledged China could not be kept out of the global family. It would be ridiculous. We are no different today. We also have to recognize that an America which is very, very unpredictable now, which is extremely uneasy to deal with and insecure, is a reality that we have to factor into our decisions. We are entering a period of deep realism. We have to be deeply realistic about the effects, and we have to give up on these ideals of ultimate ends of a world of neat uniformity. That's not going to happen. We have to countenance a world in which decoupling or a kind of duality, at least duality, is a fundamental part of the daily structure. The final thing is about the role of economics. The public health battle in the last few months has been a very severe one, and it has brought the economies of Europe and America to their knees. America is doing better. Europe is going to go through a tough time with potentially mass unemployment, recession, maybe even depression. It's looking not particularly good. I hope that we avoid the worst, of course, but we have to look at, I think, 3 scenarios, and all of those have a significant impact upon what role China plays. The best outcome, of course, would be that Europe is very robust, that China is very robust, and America very robust, and this is a blip that everyone gets through, and next year we enter a period of modest to even decent growth. That would be wonderful, but I think it doesn't look very likely at the moment. The second is that we all suffer significant economic problems. Now, China has already posted positive growth and looks like it might have 4% or 5% next year, according to the IMF. So this is, kind of not looking very likely. But even if it were that everyone's economy were to go through tremendous problems, why would that be good? It's just going to be, a massive, massive issue. So the third, I think, which is looking most likely, is that Europe will have suffering, and America will have suffering maybe more modestly, but China will prevail. This is going to pose profound questions about the attractiveness of our systems for delivering the kind of material outcomes that we want for our populations. And I think it's a question. I'm not saying that it's going to mean we get to some conclusions, but it is a significant issue. The economics now is going to be the battleground, not the public health area. And the economics is going to basically decide geopolitics. And what is extraordinary is that decisions made in 1978 about, the Deng leadership then putting all of their efforts into economic and material well-being in 2021 may well mean that we will face the extraordinary outcome of a world in which the greatest practitioner of capitalism and the most successful is a communist-led country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Brown, and for your also very different view as well. I think that you talked about the COVID-19 being as a testing ground of the governance of the country. Maybe China is trying to manage its own situation, trying to really do the best performance it can, and keep a positive growth of its GDP. So I think the world really had to work together. No country is an island, and I think hopefully some of that can be understood well outside China, rather than view that as a threat. Maybe that's something we could have a better understanding of. So I think that we have actually concluded our first round, And I think in this round we have talked a lot of questions. I think we'll make a very good digest of that, and we'll show some of the episode at our banquet tonight, and also our conference tomorrow opening as well. But I think also we have some further questions. A few some CCG prepared. For example, for Ambassador Yishinger, what do you think of the China-Europe comprehensive agreement on investment that both leaders have committed to talk, and also potential of the future cooperation in revitalize the multilateralism, and Munich Security Conference, of course, play a huge role, and on pandemic fighting, what would be the next? And of course, for Pascal, you are the you are the top official at the WTO one time, and then what do you think of the WTO future? I mean, particularly with this dilemma right now they're having, and of course future cooperation, and also Minister He talked about all the things that around international and global governance. Maybe China just ushering a new 5-year plan, and maybe you could shed some light on that as well, and how that can happen, impact the world, and also for Professor Brown, UK and globalization. What's the next phase of UK globalization? And UK is not even applying to join TPP now. And what's the future Sino-British trade and economic relation? We also have some questions, actually, online from the media. We have over 300,000 people watching now, and so on the media, there's a few questions. I just generally mentioned that. How should China cooperate with Europe in the next 5 years? On the economic and other issues, including Belt and Road, for example. This is from Hong Kong China Review News, and also from the Red Star News. It's what's the opinion about China's world economic development with the world? How that the development of China, how that connected with the world? And also for Pascal as well, what you think of the prospect of Biden not going back to the WTO, and how that will help the WTO reform, and also from China Business Network, which is a well-known media in China, with Biden as the next president of the U.S., what this means to the multilateral, institutions, and particularly COVID-19. I think some of the questions you already touched upon already, and some of them are probably new. We have about 20-some minutes left. I think that maybe we have 4 or 5 minutes, probably 5 minutes. You have your concluding thought, maybe touch upon some of those issues, which I think that you have already touched quite well at the beginning also. So perhaps we can have Ambassador Wolfgang start again. And you've been really, you didn't speak much at the beginning, but I think you were really a platform builder, basically a bridge builder. And then, with this upcoming Munich Security Conference, really highly hope for that. If you had all the leaders in your speakers, that would be really making a lot of contributions. So perhaps Wolfgang, can you speak first? You can unmute.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, a lot of ground was covered, and I know I have only just a couple of minutes for a response. Let me first respond to your question about the EU-China effort to agree on a comprehensive investment agreement. As I'm sure all of you know, getting this done was certainly before the pandemic started one of the key ambitions of the current German EU presidency. Now, because of the pandemic, but also because of unresolved issues in the negotiations about this particular EU-China agreement, we have not yet made the progress which I think was desirable. Look, this agreement is of enormous significance, goes far beyond the issue of investment rules. It is important for the EU because it would create one key element of what I believe should be the ambition of the European Union, namely to create an EU approach to and an EU strategy on China, which so far there are elements of it, but there is no coherent, no comprehensive, no comprehensive strategy accepted and signed off by all the members of the European Union. I think that's of huge importance. China deserves to be discussing with Europe, not with 27 individual members, but with Europe speaking with one voice, which is already, of course, happening in most issues when it comes to trade. So bringing the EU together on China is very important. Second, strategically speaking, the attempt to create an EU-China agreement on issues like investment is a demonstration of a prevailing European belief that we can actually build something which could be a level playing field between China and the European Union. Many of my American friends take a very different approach. They adopt a philosophy which is far more confrontational, which essentially can be summed up by saying, well, we're in a competition. Either China wins or the United States wins. That is not currently, at least, the European approach. So this is why this investment project is hugely important, because it could be an important bridge, an important element of this kind of level playing field relationship, which I think would be good for the EU. And I hope it would also be seen as beneficial to China. Second remark, with respect to the future role of the United States, I just want to say that for us in Western Europe, the transatlantic relationship will remain the single most important relationship we have with anyone outside the European Union. That is certainly true for non-nuclear powers like Germany and almost everybody else in the European Union, maybe with the exception of France, because France happens to be a permanent member of the Security Council and a nuclear power itself. But we, generally speaking, in Western Europe, we will continue to depend in a world where non-proliferation is a nice word, but it is not happening, where nuclear weapons can still be used as weapons of extortion, not necessarily simply as weapons of attack. And that is why we will need to work with and to rely on the United States. The problem is that the Trump era will have produced, when it's over, a significant element of distrust or mistrust. Because, as has been said before, even if Trump is gone on the 20th of January, the Trump voter base, 70 million people, will continue to exist. And we will not have, neither China nor Europe will have a guarantee that 4 years hence, some kind of Trump #2 might not reappear and eliminate certain agreements that will have been signed by Joe Biden and by the incoming Biden administration. In other words, there is now a question about the reliability, the sustainability of United States positions that did not exist in the 50, 60 years or 70 years since World War II, when we looked at the United States. So that makes things a lot more difficult than in the past. Last remark I want to make is, about multilateralism and the international order. Multilateralism, as I understand it, is essentially a method, but it is not an international system. It's an approach, it's a method. The international system, which we thought we had erected, for example, by the Charter of Paris regarding the Euro-Atlantic space in 1990, this order has more or less evaporated. The belief which our friend Bob Zoellick expressed many years ago, that China would end up becoming a responsible stakeholder of what he thought was the American-built liberal international rules-based system, that belief has evaporated. I think my view is that China is very interested in a system that works, but not necessarily simply by adopting or integrating into the post-war system built essentially by the United States. In other words, from my European point of view, I am looking at an international environment where most of the certainties with which I grew up as a young diplomat and as an ambassador and as a decision maker, most of the certainties are gone. The certainty that America will continue to protect us forever is gone. The certainty, Pascal is my witness, the certainty that we will, of course, always have the idea of ever closer union in the EU has been damaged somewhat by such phenomena as Brexit. And the certainty, and that has been presented by Professor Brown, the certainty that, at the end of the day, everybody will find out that democracy is the best model that everybody else will follow, has also been damaged by the lack of success in meeting challenges, as has been pointed out by Professor Brown. So many of the certainties which we consider to be givens have evaporated. And I think this is why we in the European Union will need to make a much stronger effort to be united, to speak with one voice, to defend the interests of 450 million people more effectively, because we will not, in my view, we will not be listened to if the 27 small states of the EU try to defend their interests nation state by nation state, which unfortunately we had examples of in our reaction to the pandemic earlier this year. That was not a very happy presentation of our commitment to acting collectively and acting together. So again, I repeat what I said in the beginning. We have a lot of homework to do. I hope we can do that in good cooperation with China, and this is my last word, but we expect China also to be ready for compromise. We need to be able to say to our voters that our relationship with China is built on the idea of reciprocity. What Chinese companies can do in Europe, we expect European companies to be able in China, etc., etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Yichinger. I think you have made a very good 3 point, and very well emphasized the importance of EU-China investment, comprehensive investment treaty. So that's great. And also the importance of future relation between EU and China. Thank you for your excellent remarks. I think we have quite a few questions to pose to Pascal Lamy on WTO and on those things at future trade. Perhaps Pascal, and also on Paris Peace Forum, maybe you could give us a little further explanation on that.
Yeah, three short points, having listened to my colleagues and to the questions. First, of course, on WTO. I believe the WTO has two problems. One is its software, and the second one is its hardware. Most of the attention of experts, diplomats, intellectuals, experts, is on the software part, which is the rule book. WTO is about the rules of global trade, how to open more trade while leveling the playing field in ensuring that the benefits of open trade stem from fair competition. There is a software agenda for the years to come, because the rule book has not been adjusted for quite a long time. It has to do with rules on digital trade. It has to do with further leveling the playing field on state aid disciplines, which were constructed at a time where everybody believed that China would converge to a global capitalist system, as was already mentioned, and privatize 90% of its economy. This is not happening. China has 30% of its economy under state control, which means, and that's what the leadership of China says, is important so that these companies can be supported by the state. And of course, they are supported by the state in a way that de-levels competition with others, whether on the Chinese market or on international markets. This is a second issue. I already mentioned trade and environment. So the good news is that while Mr. Trump tried to kill, destabilize, damage, paralyze WTO, Joe Biden will be back to the table in trying to find the necessary agreements by negotiation. That's for the software. The WTO also have a big problem of hardware. The machinery is a very old one. It's a sort of a medieval organization in many ways, where member states decide of everything and the Secretariat decides nothing. This is not the way to go in modern time with an international organization, which I would say is more than an organization, is an institution. And there is a need to rebalance the decision-making system, the way proposals are cooked, the way they are considered, the way they are discussed. And this is an issue which, in my view, is a machine room issue. But, you know, machine room issues are sometimes the real explanation why things do not work. So I think we should devote more attention to that, although I recognize that moving further from this mantra that it is member-driven will raise eyebrows or ruffle feathers in the diplomatic circles. I think we have to be ready to do that from time to time. Second observation on multilateralism. I totally agree with Wolfgang that it is a method and not a system. The system is the legal infrastructures, treaties, institutions that allow this multilateral method to run international relations. I think, and this is the very idea of the Paris Peace Forum, we have to move beyond multilateralism, understood as cooperation between sovereigns. We have to move to what I call polylateralism, which is enlarging multilateralism to other than sovereigns and states. By this, I mean businesses, NGOs, big academic institutions, regions, cities, which now are the stakeholders of the international system. So we have to demonopolize international cooperation from being run by sovereigns and open the way for others to engage in more purpose-led coalitions that may not be permanent, but that will get some things done, whereas, as we know, the multilateral system has been at pain to do that for the last decades for a variety of reasons. And finally, to say how much I agree with the scenarios which Kerry has mentioned, including the likelihood of the third one, which is China, and to a large extent Asia, by the way, but China moving out strongly in economic terms from this crisis as compared to the Western world. And I think this will happen the way Kerry has sketched it, but it means that China has to handle this situation with a lot of care and not repeat what happened during the COVID crisis when Chinese diplomats went all around the planet in saying China did incredibly well and the rest of the planet is going down the toilet. This is something that has damaged, in my view, Chinese perceptions around the world. China is a major stakeholder in the international system. It will exit this crisis with credibility, with a stronger economy than the rest, but this is one more reason to go back to this notion of responsible stakeholder. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Pascal, for the great points that you raised. Also the WTO and also multilateralism. Yeah, so those were well taken. We will take note on that. So we're running out of time. Perhaps Minister He, you can briefly give your final words, and also Mr. Kerry after that. So we conclude pretty soon.
Thank you. Briefly, to answer the questions, I think economy may be the greatest challenge for all of us. It is certain we are in economic recession, and arguably will go into a depression. We are not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, this is for all of us. And with COVID-19 and combined with cyclical changes in global economy, global and regional supply chains are being realigned or readjusted. You mentioned that China is doing something new. China is formulating the 14th five-year plan, and also a longer-term vision of economic and social development through the year 2035, with a focus on dual circulation, relying more on domestic consumption. The economy was driven more by domestic consumption, but at the same time maintaining engagement in international economic cooperation. But the shift is clear. The shift is clear to domestic consumption, more to domestic consumption. So global supply chain, regional supply chain are changing. How will China, US, EU respectively react to such changes or contribute to such changes? I agree that in this triangle relationship, the most important three countries or group of countries, China, US, EU, US has become the most uncertain one. Lots of uncertainty about its future. Even if Biden might tactically return to the negotiation table, rejoin some of the institutions, but to what extent, how much he can make US back to the right track is still uncertain. and very much uncertain, because the social division, as I mentioned, in the United States will not go away. It will only be exacerbated. I do not wish to see a situation where China's success in economic growth be viewed as a victory of a growth model compared to other growth models. Then it will become an ideological competition. Pascal has mentioned, we should focus on what we can do together on two things: promote economic growth. Some of the immediate challenges like vaccine distribution, we need to consider very seriously, but how to promote sustainable economic growth for the future of mankind, it's the common responsibility for all of us. It will not rely on one economic model or success of one or the other. I would not like to see a situation where this is happening, a zero-sum game again, not in geopolitical terms, but geoeconomic terms. Supply chain will change. It's a fact. We need to face it. But how best we can do it, including, as Pascal mentioned, the reform of WTO, is part of the process. Upper architecture, the basic supply chain, all needs to change to go with globalization 2.0. So we should do something right now. China, EU first, I think. We may be able to attract or to pull back US into our embrace, and gradually we may move along the same line. So this is what I want to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Minister He, for your final words, which also outlined the new development recently in China about the 14th five-year plan and the dual circulation and Vision 2035. Thank you for that. So I'd like to have a Carrie for the final words as well. What's your final words about the globalization and of course the China-UK relations and Europe as well? Yeah, your final words, please.
Yeah, just two things. On the UK's very unique position, I didn't want to depress people too much, so I avoided the subject of talking about the UK. We will see the ways in which desperation makes people inventive, because I think the Johnson government believed early on that Trump would get a second term, and that therefore there would be a trade deal with America and we would become more Atlantic facing. And that's obviously very, very changed now because of the President Biden's election. So I don't know how we're going to kind of balance the, possibility of having no deal with the European Union and not an easy deal with an America under Biden. And also a lot of the kind of language that our politicians use about China, I think shows there's going to be issues with having a trade deal there. So we will need to have a fundamental rethink if we're going to be able to move forward. And maybe that will happen quite soon with a deal with the EU, hopefully, but we do need to make decisions very quickly. On the other issue of, I think for China to come to some comments, I think Pascal Lamy and others have said, China's greatest problem now is its success. Every day in which it is more successful than America and Europe is a day of peril. Because I think the mindsets in Washington and America have always been of a China which was going to sort of, fail and need to change to succeed, by having a different governance system. But I mean, it's obvious that that's not likely today. And I think we talk about the tone of the Trump leadership and how even in changing that tone, if Biden changes nothing else, it will be an improvement because there'll be a different tone. The one piece of advice I would strongly make to the Chinese government is that they have an audience globally now who have not absolutely made their mind up about China. Politicians may have made their mind up about China, but I think global audiences in Europe and America and Australia are still not really decided. And the tone of Chinese diplomacy now is critical. It's critical. And if China sounds victorious, if China sounds like it's kind of very, very categorical about, you know, certain things, that will mean that this historic opportunity to have at least a more listening global audience will have been lost. I'm not saying that the global audience is going to be particularly friendly towards China, maybe, but I think they are listening now. And I think China's messages need to be very, very carefully tailored to speak to that audience and say, on public health, on climate change, on these issues, we are one humanity, we can work together. And I think that that is critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry, for your final words. I think you said well. I think that's exactly also we want to conclude our today's very distinguished panel discussion about on the confrontation of those common challenges and to the mankind. The pandemic, economic development, all the recessions, how to fight and how to have a better economic growth. That really are the fundamental issues that facing not only China but also other world. So we really have many reasons to work together. So I think we're going to conclude. I'm glad to report actually we're having over 700,000 viewers and listeners online to have this live streaming in China. I think we did better than the morning section. Probably at the morning time where everybody's in rush hour, but now in the afternoon in China, everybody's really had time to listen to us. Probably also Ambassador Yishinger and Pascal and Mr. He and Brown has more attractiveness. But anyway, I want to conclude. I want to thank our speakers again, Carrie Brown, Professor and Director of Law China Institute at the King's College in London, and also Honorable Mr. He Yafei, CCG co-chair, but he's a former Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also former Vice Minister of State Council oversees China's diaspora affairs. And of course, Ambassador Wolfgang Ischinger, Chairman, Munich Security Conference, which is a very important conference, former German ambassador to the United States. He knows the US very well. And last but not least, Pascal Lamy, the chair currently today, actually Paris Peace Forum is opening. You are the chair for that. Thank you for coming, but also you are the former Director General of World Trade Organization. So this is really fascinating discussion. We really appreciate all your presence. I think it will add great value to our 6th annual China and Globalization Conference. Since I hope that you'll come in the future, we invite you to come in person, but this time we can only do online, but your view has been heard probably more than any offline conference. We actually have a better communication online as well. So once again, thank you very much and appreciate all your wisdom and advice and recommendations. Thank you so much.